Hey team, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian, core design engineer with Brunswick Bowling, and since Radical has two brand new releases in the market, it's time to review the brand new comparison chart with the latest and greatest products. But before we dive into all that, I have a bit of housekeeping to talk over with you guys. We're going to start with the Perception versus Reality podcast. Core designer Steve Freshour was on that one last week to talk about the history of core designs in the Radical family since he's been designing with them, starting back in the days with Mo, and of course even some history about their days together at Mo-Rich before they both came over to Radical. And it's very interesting to see how, although all of these core designs have their own subtle shape and size differences, there are some certain nuances about the core designs that are specific to Radical that have carried throughout the designs throughout the years. So if you want to hear all of the deep dive on the history of the Radical cores, make sure you go find the latest Perception versus Reality video. I believe they're archived on YouTube under Radical's either live tab or just video tab. You'll be able to find it. Look for Perception versus Reality. And speaking of videos that are archived, you should definitely check out the ZigZag overview video that I did for the Radical Facebook page and YouTube page. It was called What Makes the ZigZag Core So Unique? And that's available to watch. I'm not going to go into all that depth again here in this video, so make sure if you want a deep dive on the unique characteristics of the ZigZag core, which I'll quickly summarize here in a couple minutes, but if you want a deeper dive onto that, make sure to find that on the Radical Facebook or YouTube page as well. And last but not least, I have a brand new video out about the No Doubt core. It has some history in the Radical brand. It is actually an ancestor of the very famous, very popular Ridiculous core that was in the original Black Ridiculous, as well as the Ridiculous Pearl and the Beyond Ridiculous series. So that one was an ultimate fan favorite, but remember that one was in the era where balance holes were allowed. So a real redesign here with this No Doubt core to give you a familiar motion for those longtime Radical fans, but in a new bolstered package that deals with slicker oil conditions, and of course in the era of no balance holes, some things had to change. So all of that in the latest Radical rundown by yours truly. Now before we get into this comparison chart, we're just going to take a quick refresher on these cores, starting here with the ZigZag Solid. The ZigZag Solid contains the original ZigZag core that was found in the polished hybrid. That original ZigZag core was so interesting because, as you know, it's a pretty moderate core for a pro performance core with the undrilled numbers, but of course you can toggle these numbers to get an incredibly aggressive core by numbers or a relatively mellow core. So just as a refresher, this one is 2501, a very medium revving RG. A total differential of 0.45 is actually quite medium, squarely in the middle of the differential range, and an intermediate differential of 0.15 is on the moderate side as well. Now, of course, with a max flip layout that puts your thumb right through the front nose of this core, you can really blow these numbers up. You can literally double the intermediate differential to 0.30, which is going to drastically change the response to friction and sharpen it up incredibly. And of course, it also bolsters the differential to 0.57 as well. So that's going to be a much higher flaring and much more jerky change of direction in that layout. And if you choose, you can kick the mass bias out a little bit as a standard layout, a more benchmark layout, and what that's going to do is reduce the change in intermediate differential, which is going to keep it a little closer to that 15 to 17 range in intermediate differential, which is not as jerky, maybe a little more continuous for those house shot types. And if you choose to kick the PSA out by the VAL or even past the VAL, then you can even reduce the intermediate differential if you so choose to get a much, much smoother shape out of this core. So a little bit of a shape-shifting core, and of course all the details are in that other video, so I'm not going to spend too much more time on that. All of this is now wrapped in the HK22 HyperKinetic solid package on this ZigZag Solid, aggressively sanded at 500-1500 for a lot of mid-lane dig. So this isn't going to be the strongest asymmetrical ball in your bag, but it's going to be near the top. And of course, with layout versatility like that, you can really make it play whatever role in your bag that you want it to as an asymmetrical ball. Shifting gears here now and talking about the new No Doubt, of course this core is what we're calling super symmetrical. It has both characteristics of asymmetrical and symmetrical motion shapes after you drill it, and that's due in part by the fact that this core volume is quite a bit bigger than that original ridiculous core. Because of the core volume being higher, it's got a lower 2485 RG, so that's going to be on the fast side of medium revving, but I still consider this to be a medium RG ball. And undrilled, it's got an 051 total differential, so that's going to be on the high side of flare potential for a ball that is medium revving and arcing in motion shape. Now, it is super symmetrical, which means that also because of the core volume that I was talking about a second ago, it actually sticks out quite a bit, and it's purposely designed to have a point under the CG of the ball, basically on the line effectively from the pin through the CG. That part of the core sticks out a little bit more than the rest of the shape of the core, which means you'll more readily hit it when you drill into it. With your thumb as a thumb in player, that's going to boost the intermediate differential a little more than you would with a standard symmetrical ball. So you get just a hint of asymmetry after drilling relative to other symmetrical balls. And of course, the same thing goes for tall pin layouts on no thumb bowlers. If you drill your fingers, with a tall pin layout, you're still going to hit that nose on that core and give yourself a little more intermediate differential, which translates to a faster response to friction, but still good continuation down lane because at its heart, this is technically a symmetrical ball. This one is wrapped in the HK22 Plus pearlized cover stock, and it has been turning heads. People are drawing comparisons to a competitor ball that had a similar color scheme, but this one is certainly more ball overall and more down lane from the late mid lane to the pins, and this one also continues through the pins and goes toward the 8 pin, where the competitor ball can get a little forward. So in my eyes, no comparison, although I can see why that comparison is drawn, and frankly we invite it because we feel like this is the superior product. Moving over now to our comparison chart, you longtime Radical fans should be very familiar with this chart. It's sorted by oil volume from left to right, and from top to bottom it's sorted by response to friction. So those sharper responding balls toward the top of the chart, the smoother responding balls toward the bottom of the chart, and the heavier oil balls toward the right, and the lighter oil balls toward the left. Now, if we zoom in here on our ZigZag solid, you'll notice that it kind of fits neatly between a max bias and a radical conspiracy. I've had reviewers say that the radical conspiracy is sharper down lane. I've had reviewers say that the ZigZag is a lot sharper down lane, so I think it's a little bit player specific. But all told, the ZigZag is a little bit of a different animal because it is so layout specific. The range of layouts that you can put on that ZigZag core means the post-drilled numbers can be a wider range. So this chart is sorted with a standard layout. It would be kind of an all-purpose layout. It wouldn't be anything crazy. With a max flip layout, you can make it as aggressive as you want it to be. It would probably be the top ball in your bag for most players. And with a more subdued layout, or a layout that doesn't build quite as much asymmetry into this core, it's still going to slow down in the mid lane a lot because of that aggressive cover stock combined with its aggressive box finish, but it might have a more arcing response to friction with still good continuation for an asymmetrical ball. But still, I wouldn't classify this one as a sharp asymmetrical ball by any stretch of the imagination, and I think the box finish is contributing to that quite a great deal. I wouldn't be afraid if I bowled on more medium conditions to smooth out that box finish to a true 2000 grit finish, or even up to a 3000 grit finish if you want it to be a step down from your strongest asymmetrical balls, as a cleaner and sharper option that you can still use on fresher oil. But to my eye, this one is right at home on fresh, heavier house shots, or just playing in the puddle of wet-dry conditions where you can send it to the friction and you don't want it to over-respond, but you do want it to be aggressive off of the friction. And of course, that gives you a chance to strike when you miss left as well, because that early, strong, aggressive box finish is going to help it dig and give you a little misroom both left and right by blending the pattern out in both directions. Moving over now to our No Doubt. This one is aptly named, and it has been kind of a sleeper pick of the last release launch. In testing, we liked the ball, but we've got so many different products that all do various things that sometimes the balls that are just true, strong, repeatable performers don't catch our eye until they're in the field and we realize, oh my gosh, we really have a product here. but the level of continuation from the mid lane to the pins on this No Doubt has been really impressive from deep angles for a lot of the testers. We test in specific environments in West Michigan. I think that there is just more oil in the front part of the lane to mask some of the ugliness in the heads. So we bowl on a lot of volume, and I think around the world there is a distinct lack of volume. So having a product that naturally pushes through the front part of the lane and still responds well without burning up or getting forward at the back of the lane is what makes a product a standout. And this symmetrical No Doubt has been that for our web reviewers. No matter who's been throwing it, this ball has been able to get left of the competitor balls and still round out that corner, continue through the pins and go through them without getting too forward or deflecting toward the 9-pin. And that is what has made this ball so impressive. So you look at it on the chart, you say that, yeah, that's built for medium to medium light oil. It fits squarely in the middle of everything. It doesn't look too impressive on a 2D chart, but it's, seeing is believing. And if you watch some of the ball motion reviews of this one, you'll see what we mean when we say it continues as you go left and you open up your angles, and it doesn't do anything super sharp, super drastic, but the predictability is the strong suit of this ball, and people are loving it. Benchmark certainly is an overused term, and I don't think the No Doubt is quite a benchmark ball because it's a compounded finish, but more than that, the compound and pearlized cover is also paired with a high differential core, which means that at the back of the lane it's going to give you quite a bit of torque. I think this one is best suited for digging in as your number 2 ball when there's a little bit of developed mid lane friction on the types of patterns that you're used to seeing, which would be a high ratio house shot. And when you do that, this ball is going to get through the fronts and the mid lanes a little more easily than those asymmetrical balls that you might have used before it. It's not going to do anything surprising or anything too jerky. It's just going to give you a hard booming motion off of the friction and continuation through the pins, where those asymmetrical balls can get a little jerky in the mid lane, a little bit more unpredictable, and maybe not go through the pins quite as well in the middle stages of transition. And I think that is why we called this one No Doubt. That's the information I have on these 2 new Radical balls available in pro shops right now as we speak. Don't forget to check out the Radical rundown for both the No Doubt and the ZigZag cores. They contain a lot of information and detail that I didn't cover in this video. Make sure you check out core designer Steve Freshour on the Perception vs. Reality podcast on the Radical Bowling YouTube page. And make sure you like and follow myself, Bowling Buckosh, on YouTube and Facebook. I make new releases when new core designs come out for the brands of Brunswick, and I've been making shorts on YouTube as well to review the balls that don't necessarily get a new core design but are a follow-up to an existing line in the brands of Brunswick. So this will make this channel more of a one-stop shop for all of the information on all of the new releases in the brands of Brunswick. I hope you find value in that. And if you like and subscribe, then you won't be missing a single video. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.